So by way of introduction, my name is Steve Pastner. I'm the Director of Sales at Braze, responsible for the East region of enterprise accounts. Under that, on my team, we cover a number of accounts in Canada, including CIBC, under which Simplii Financial falls into place, which is how I've been able to be connected with Joe over the past year or so that I've been working in this role. Joe's obviously been using Braze for a lot longer, and Joe is a senior manager of optimization and personalization. So we want to use this time today to talk about unifying the client experience to drive retention and growth. Joe's been graciously helpful in offering up his time to discuss his work, his company, and what they're doing, in the space. So without further ado, Joe, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you and your role.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate the introduction. So, as Stephen mentioned, personalization and optimization senior manager at Simplii Financial. I work under our Simplii Financial digital strategy and client engagement team. Currently, I work with a cross-functional team across technology, online, product, and marketing in order to personalize our clients' online and offline experiences. Prior to working at Simplii Financial, I worked at CIBC in product communications and digital strategy, and even in digital performance marketing. So excited to have this discussion today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So, Joe, I think maybe if we could just get started to help everybody understand who Simplii Financial is, a little bit more about the company, the background, how you relate up to CIBC. Get everybody on a common ground before we start jumping into the specifics of what you're doing there.
Yeah, no, of course. So obviously, previously mentioned, we're a no-fee bank under CIBC, our parent company. We originated November 1st of 2017, so relatively new, but not new at the same time. We were previously under the PC Financial brand. We had previously a 20-year partnership with Loblaws, and in 2017, we decided to split and do our own thing. So CIBC decided to bring a no-fee bank competitor into the Canadian market after November 1st of 2017. So we're just chugging along.
Awesome. I'm curious to hear about what kind of differentiates you. I know, banking's been around forever, right? So starting out in 2017, as a no-fee player, what are some of the things that you focus on to differentiate Simplii from the rest of the world?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. So we have obviously our product offering, like with competitor rates across our mortgage and deposit products. We were the first bank to actually offer newcomers and foreign students the ability to open digital account open. Forbes has said that we were a top bank in Canada for 3 years in a running. And I like to think now with the recent changes, our personalization and audience strategy will be leading in market as well. So I can probably add that on as something that would probably differentiate us moving forward.
Cool. So with that said, love to know more about your responsibilities, how you fit in with the greater marketing organization, and then if you dive into some of your ultimate goals and why what you do matters to the bank.
Yes, of course. So in terms of how I fit into the current Simplii organization, as mentioned previously, I work on a cross-functional team with business, technology, marketing, digital strategy. As you can imagine, us being not necessarily a fintech, but we're a smaller bank compared to our parent company, so we're quite nimble, and our leadership empowers us to make decisions. And then decisions in essence of trying to innovate, looking to push things forward, and marketing and personalization is something that we're really driving for the last couple of years. In terms of our goal, I think everyone tries to attempt this in the market, is to make their clients or their customers feel if we're presenting the right message at the right time, we're really speaking to them, regardless if they're on offline and online channels. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's new to Simplii, but I feel like we're probably doing it best. And I think in the next handful of years, we'll definitely see the fruits of our labor. My personal responsibilities is developing our personalization roadmap for all of our clientele based on our audience strategy, platform investment, obviously with Braze and across our other partners, developing our experimentation strategy across on-site and direct channels in order to help our product teams develop better messaging structures and even product features, or even product constructs. And then on top of it, I work with our key stakeholders across marketing and product to actually execute on our marketing and experimentation calendar.
Excellent. So I'd love to then hear, knowing that you've been working with Braze for some time and you've been in this role for a little while, what were some of the challenges that you saw when you first stepped into the role? Ultimately, why did you choose to make the technology moves that you chose to make, and share with us, why the tool set wasn't working, what you're doing now, and how that's going.
We might need some more time, but I probably think from a long-term, probably more broader item, we had fragmented client experience. A lot of our channels either sitting with an agency or different teams within the bank. So trying to work to kind of close those gaps and close those silos, even considering bringing more channels in-house, especially through Braze. In terms of the immediate items, I noticed just the brand awareness within CIC and Simplii around Braze, how we're using it. And I'd like to say to all of our partners internally that we're only using 10% of Braze's power. Like, how do we get to the rest of the 90%? So first couple items I did is we had no first party data. So we weren't able to target our clients based off the information they provided to us along their relationship with us. So even though it was manual, we were able to find a workaround in order to get that data into the platform. Additionally, we had no performance data, so our messages, in quite essence, we had very limited understanding of in terms of how it impacted the entire funnel. So they had barely just impression and clicks. So obviously, in terms of getting funding for projects, I need something a little bit deeper than that. So our primary reporting mechanism and platform is Adobe Analytics. So making that custom integration with Adobe Analytics to actually have our Braze performance data actually pumped into our workspaces, so that we had that holistic picture from an on-site paid media perspective and even direct channels from Braze on the holistic story for our marketing campaigns. Additionally, obviously, how do we feed our Braze instance? So our SDK was either old or minimally implemented across all of our data elements in our digital properties. So expanding that to ensure that, once we are able to make segmentation just with first party data, but it's great if Braze can actually build that segmentation itself in a platform, because obviously it'll be a lot quicker to trigger messages based off your use cases if Braze already had that data in their platform. Additionally, I'm sure a lot of people probably can share this, is that we have our own deep link schema for our app. So a lot of our messages couldn't even navigate you to certain pages. So you can imagine if we're putting instructions in a Braze pop-up modal, most people are just going to quickly dismiss it, versus if, hey, just click this one button and we'll take you directly where you need to go. And then additionally, we were very much focused on sending out campaigns, but campaigns are very one and done. How do we introduce Canvas to our leadership and explaining how the benefits of having something sequential and understanding exactly what clients are receiving when they receive it, and almost in essence solving that issue of that fragmented experience I mentioned earlier.
Great. I'd love to hear what channels you're using today. I know there's so many different channels. There's always new stuff coming up in social and just the way the world operates. There's always new laws that are taking place, and you work in a very highly regulated industry. We'd love to hear about what channels you're using, and then also maybe some of the regulation concerns that you're facing, that and how you've been able to get around them.
So obviously, being a long-standing Braze client, we did start with push notifications and app messages across web and our mobile app. Recently expanded this year for web push, content cards, email, and SMS. In terms of the regulatory barriers that we're navigating around, obviously transitioning email in-house just to ensure that we're CASL compliant, and obviously with the support of our CSM and our TAM, we've been able to navigate that, ensuring that our Braze user profiles are updating, sending the right data to the cloud source system, and then being able to update our CRM according to clients unsubscribing or resubscribing to our messages. SMS will probably, I would say, it's been the more harder thing to navigate, as it's not necessarily something that's used so broadly, especially in the financial sector for marketing purposes. We did have SMS alerts, but obviously completely different than me promoting you a checking account through that. So working through with the support team on that, just to navigate all the regulatory items in terms of opting you in, making sure that you're part of the subscription group, having those keywords on the ready to ensure that if you do want to unsubscribe, or even, quite frankly, I didn't know this was before I opted into it, like if you needed help, there's a keyword they need for help, and how do we respond to clients that actually type help to our short and long code, and where do we direct them? And in essence, helping our frontline staff. Obviously, Simpli doesn't have any brick and mortar, so if they do call into telephone banking, how to train them to have clients, if they do want to unsubscribe, how do they do it, especially if they're in an older demographic, maybe not as used to it, or even necessarily how to even capture, if they wanted to receive messages, how to resubscribe them. So all those little details and being able to respond promptly and making sure that we have like a cohesive product and marketing strategy.
Cool. Looking into the immediate term, what you're working on today, would love to know what challenges that you and the business are facing and how you're overcoming those.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say our biggest issue is channel frequency and timing. So I was mentioning, like, we're kind of very much in a building stage. So I like to call it, we're bringing a walled garden. So we're bringing all of our channels in-house and trying to become very, I guess, linear in terms of us being able to execute and being able to update our channels when we need them and knowing exactly what you're receiving when. So I think with us, knowing that we have that issue of channel frequency, how we're actually reaching out and having that fragmented experience, and now taking the steps to bring everything in-house, it will reduce that need or those questions around who's receiving what, when, what's the timing of it, what's the content of our messages, and really being able to really just go into Braze or client data platform and be like, okay, this is who we're targeting when, do we need to make updates, how is it performing? Is there any opportunities for optimization, either in terms of segmentation or even from A/B testing? So I would say definitely we're moving in the right direction to kind of solve that larger issue. Great.
Now, in terms of some of the things you're doing around like SDKs and the mobile app, retargeting campaigns, how's that coming along?
It's coming along well. I think the benefit of me having my experience in the CFC side, there are a lot of things that we've tested and know as true. So we don't feel necessarily that we're starting from ground zero. So a lot of the big wins that we know work. So if a client drops off your application, it's probably best that you remind them and try to re-engage them. Everyone's busy. From an onboarding flow, that's something that we're currently working on with Braze and also internal partners. As we bring in new channels, how does Canvas and even the use of Canvas Flow introduce those new channels on top of in-app and push notifications that we already had working, and how can it be all cohesive? And then I think additionally, with all that interaction data that Braze is collecting, how are we sending it back into our client data platform and then updating our segmentation and see if potentially a client group that we've always identified, maybe there's a subset of them that need to be communicated differently in order to get them to become more stickier, more valuable to us as a client base, or even just increase client satisfaction.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, looking at marketing campaigns that you're running, as well as transactional campaigns, how do you oversee and manage a balance between both?
So I would probably say that at the current moment, that's something that we've seen as an opportunity. So how do we reduce fatigue, right? And I think that will only be solved through the steps that we're taking now, is literally bringing more things in-house, having the constant feedback loop in terms of interaction, and really relying on our segmentation to really determine future iterations of a marketing campaign to see how we can change it and reduce either fatigue or even increase client satisfaction or even throughput.
Okay. Do you see fatigue being channel specific?
At the current onset, it's tough to say, largely because, as I was mentioning, our channels are siloed and we're working to consolidate them. But I think what we've kind of noticed is in terms of offer fatigue, and maybe potentially like through our experimentation strategy, how do we maybe alter the messaging, alter the actual construct of the offer to either reduce that fatigue, or in essence, now that we have additional channels, maybe promoting it through communication the same way, but through a different channel that the client is more likely to actually click through or take the actions that you want them to.
Cool. Out of curiosity, have you seen any campaigns that you've run that you're very surprised by the outcome?
Yes, very. I'd like to think that, or at least my assumption previously to running this campaign, it had to do with funding your account. I was thought, everyone would like to save for rainy days, something that is embedded in us to save and be conservative around future issues. Or if you are promoting saving, you need to tie it to a higher interest rate or some sort of special offer. Something that we did test a year ago was actually asking clients with no special offer, just saying like, hey, we noticed you haven't funded your account in 30, 60, 90 days. Hey, it probably might be best that you do to save for a rainy day. Just very simple messaging, quick prompt, directing them directly to a few options, either to do e-deposit, signing up for payroll, or even just requesting a knee transfer from a friend that hasn't sent you money in a while. And to see the results of that was outstanding. I think our leadership was just amazed because it wasn't like we had to put any additional dollars. It was just my time, our resources, times already hired. We didn't have to put any money to additional offers in market. It was just the base interest rate. And we saw hundreds of millions of dollars come in just from that one message. So considering your rate of return, it was quite high for something most people would say is quite quick win to get out.
Sounds like you probably got a raise after that one.
I'd probably say more of a pat on the
back. So you did mention, I know we've spoken about it, but in terms of the team construct, I mean, what kind of resources do you have at your disposal to build out these campaigns, run them, integrations and creative?
Yeah, so we have a marketing team that consists of editorial resource, graphic designer, front-end developer, someone that would actually be in the tools such as myself, and a quality assurance resource. And they all closely work with our compliance, legal team, product team, and even our overall marketing team to make sure everything's signed off from a branding standpoint, language standpoint, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, to make sure obviously we're compliant with all the recent laws and we're not overstating. So that's predominantly, it's a co-working team, so-called pods, to execute on not just obviously our Braze campaigns, but also all of our marketing communication.
Great. So curious to hear what's next. What kind of long-term plans do you have? What do you see coming up regarding your ecosystem? What do you see coming in the near future?
That's something I think I can probably share. If you give me the ability, I'll share my screen.
Oh, great.
Let me know if you all can see.
I can see it good, or well.
Great. So I think I did a good job kind of detailing stage 1 and 2. So what's next is what you can see in the stage 3 over here is we spent a lot of time, I mentioned, in bringing more channels in-house, making connections to more real-time data from both a digital perspective and first-party perspective. But now how do we leverage that segmentation and make connections to our more client-facing and support channels? So either our chatbot provider, our IVR telephone banking system, and even our eCRM, so that if clients do call in, that our frontline staff know exactly who we are and what maybe you've done maybe on site to help answer questions for you and potentially get you moving on your way with a smile. So I would say probably stage 3 is what we're looking to do next. Stage 1 and 2 is something I mentioned that we've been doing for the past 6 months to a year, and well on our way to kind of enabling this ecosystem that you can see at the bottom.
That's great. Obviously this world moves very, very quickly. I'm curious what you see as some of the biggest changes that come up in your world and how you plan to overcome those.
Probably 2 items. It's probably the cookie deprecation. In essence, it's forcing marketers like myself and our business to rely on more persistent client identifiers and say just your cookie ID, device ID, and being able to really segment properly, and then in essence acting on those audience segmentation, and then being able to cascade it down to your marketing platforms to actually execute. So not just necessarily from a digital platform, but even as I was mentioning, to our support channels.
Cool.
So that would probably be one, but I feel with us, we were safeguarded doing that. All of our marketing platforms did have a strong cross-reference. We do force authentication. And even when a client is applying for our products, their mobile phone number is spot checked for proper characters. So it does allow us to have like stronger match rates and being able to better identify the client regardless of the cookie deprecation.
Yeah. That
would be one. And then second, obviously the changing landscape between iOS and Android, and even like a quick thing, Android adopting, say, iOS's approach on push notification opt-in. What's our strategy for that? How do we ensure that we don't reduce our push notification opt-ins? And so just really making sure that you're up to speed with the changing market.
Excellent. A lot of people that we speak with always ask us about, getting data into a tool like Braze to be able to use. And here I see, you've got your first party data, that's then running into your CDP. I think the audience would probably be interested to hear more about your decision on CDP, how you leverage it, how you see that playing a role in the rest of the efforts that you have across, obviously paid media, your first party channels, so on and so forth.
Yes, of course. So largely it was twofold. I think definitely the driving force was the cookie deprecation, and Adobe CDP was a product that was being offered by Adobe, and we have a long-standing relationship with them. So it was completely natural to kind of navigate towards that. Additionally, knowing that Braze did partner with Adobe to create a native connector to update our user track was a game changer for us, and it helped drive the conversation forward as our business group saying that we need to make the investment from audience manager, more traditional DMP, to an actual CDP platform that would have that cohesive client profile that could then be actioned and cascaded toward all of our marketing endpoints, which you can see on the right side of the diagram here.
Excellent. When this is all fully baked, what do you see as, maybe the biggest advantages that you'll have over, say, other competitors in the industry, just given your ecosystem?
I think it would be multiple folds here. So as I was kind of mentioning in our stage one, we went from having data being pumped in manually, and obviously with it coming manually less frequent. So us making direct connections to our first party data, and obviously our digital behavior data being collected by Adobe and Braze SDK allows us to action on our segmentation quicker, and being able to time messages and even personalization on site or even through our support channels from a frontline perspective, relatively, I want to say real time, but as real time as could possibly be. And then additionally, having that 360 view of the client in terms of all their interaction touch points. So each of these marketing endpoints will be feeding data back into our first party data, enterprise data hubs, and then going back into CDP, or in essence, we'll make the connection directly to our Adobe CDP to then action on segmentation off of, or more refined segmentation off of. And I think additionally as well, you mentioned channel fatigue. So something that we've been talking to our leadership around is not everyone receiving the same communication, but receiving the right channel at the right time and the right message, depending on who you are as a client and how you interact with us through either direct means or through digital means.
Excellent. And out of curiosity, I mean, you mentioned earlier on, you don't have brick and mortar. I'd love to know some of the places that you see that being an advantage, but also where is a disadvantage, and how you overcome that. I mean, the ability to walk into a brick and mortar and ask a question and get that help obviously means that you need to self-serve more. I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of those things. I see in here, using all of this data together, but client support channels is one of these key components. To me, that is something that is kind of unique to your business compared to the traditional bank. So I'd love to learn more about that.
I think from a positive standpoint, it makes us more nimble. And I do feel like we know our clients better. And you're probably wondering why. I think, how many times have you actually gone, say, into a branch and talked to someone? Largely, if you look at your branches, some people are just doing these quick bankings, going into ATM, and they're still interacting with a more digital means, even though they might be in the branch themselves, physically wise. In terms of what it does in terms of complexity is exactly what we're referencing here. We need to be able to maybe not necessarily have that face-to-face conversation with you, but how do we have that digital or telephone or chat with you? And how do we take that information providing us in terms of your needs and wants? And even if it's just more just interaction over a website, how do we take those needs and wants and be able to determine your next best step? Or even what's your next best offer? Or how can we necessarily get you in touch with the right advice in order to deepen your relationship with us as a bank?
Okay. Thinking about banking and the leveraging that you have with your mobile app, I personally feel like I care a lot about my money, so I'm more prone to receive communications from somebody, that would be taking care of my money. Things like, push notifications and such. Curious if you have any thoughts on the advantage that you have there, and for folks that maybe aren't in banking, some of the ways that they can better leverage channels to serve a customer, content that's very relevant and very interesting to them. Just, kind of thing. There's probably some folks joining this that are from outside banking. They might not have as much of an impetus into something like a mobile app, but obviously you want to keep those channels open. What kind of advice do you have for them?
My advice would be make the investment. I think nowadays, with everyone being as busy and moving as fast as they need to be, I think everyone has gotten cold calls from duck cleaning. And how often are you actually spending the time to actually entertain the conversation from a cold call, right? And how does that affect your branding? Because if you're going to see that phone number again, you're most likely to just dismiss it. Versus your app, something that's sitting persistently on a device that very much is part of your body now, constantly there when you need it. And additionally, being able, especially from a push notification perspective, you don't need to necessarily be interacting with the app. As long as you're opt-in, I can send you personalized messages directly to your phone and for you to quickly look at, and potentially not necessarily act on that spot, but later on, at least that that Simplii or your specific product or business is there to support you when you need, and specifically if there's an interest in an offer, or if you're going through a hard time knowing that I do have my bank in my wallet, or I do have that grocery store app just ready when I need them at the time that I'm is most convenient for myself.
Are there any brands that you see doing customer engagement really well that you follow, that you think, hey, like how do I take these learnings and put them into play at Simplii?
If you, I got to show you my phone. I'm flooded with apps I don't necessarily use, but I hear great things about them to just take ideas from. And I always mention to my colleagues, I don't necessarily have great ideas. I just have a large notepad of just ideas that I came down from years past, either screenshots or just little noted dotted points. So I think it's probably cliche, but Amazon just wows me. Just with the experience across all the channels, their frontline staff, I get on, they already know what I was looking at and what I potentially have issues with. That's exactly what I want us to get to. Even Revolut, if I'm going back to the financial sector, is a European fintech bank that is doing personalization great in my essence. They don't have any brick and mortar spots, but you're able to do everything from technology-wise towards activating your card, transitioning different currencies just within their digital properties. And if you need support, their chat is available, or they'll give you a call if you want at the time, and use all the channels available to them, and it's completely personalized. I think also Sephora, which is a big vendor in Canada, is also doing a great job in terms of their static advertising on their app, using a very much a content cards approach, and then partnering that up with frontline and even digital push notifications to get you traffic check out with the product or be cross-sold. So those are the brands that I most likely look out to, not necessarily always consistently using, but I'm constantly taking screenshots, notes, and then how do we replicate this? How can we do it based on what I understand of our infrastructure? And then how can it be translated specifically to the financial sector?
Great. One of the things I heard you mention there was stuff along personalization. Personalization is obviously a core component of what you do today. And you mentioned that a couple of times now. I'd love to hear some examples from you of ways that you personalize messages.
So to date, and I think we'll be getting better. It largely is very simplistic between just saying hey Joe versus just hey you, and just seeing the increase in open rates for our push notifications by just having your name. It was incredible just to see small nuances like that. In terms of what we're doing now is we've actually whitelisted all of those IP addresses and being able to kind of pull in content from public APIs and even make connections with internal platforms, even just pull in specific information around the client. So they don't necessarily need to type it into a form. It can be within a Braze pop-up, has all the information they need, and allows them to kind of move forward with their data. And in essence, being able to kind of simplify their day-to-day banking so that especially if they're just doing the bill payment, not too much of a bother. We're not asking them to do too much. So I would largely say that right now we're very much in the infancy stage, but I feel now often be small improvements to just whitelisting these IP addresses, for instance. It allows us the ability to do much more in the future.
Excellent. What about optimization? I mean, that's obviously another component that you're nodding your head. I'm sure you're hyper focused on. What are some of the things that you're doing there?
Well, and this will be a large surprise, not necessarily from a direct channel perspective, but probably the best optimization I've had to date was search engine optimization. Give like a quick story. We have standalone pages, product pages that or offer pages that we have where if a client actually receives one of our direct communications, they land on explains the offer in more detail. Something that we noticed is that these pages had very much a duplicate header name. So with Google, because we were doing things really quickly, Google, they thought that the 5 pages were one. So in essence, it already thought that it was promoting all those pages, but it was only promoting one of them. So just very small optimization of actually making each of those pages headers unique. So Google could actually find them and be like, oh, these are all different, not the same. Increase our conversion by 200%. Something really small like that is not incredibly fancy, but I always tell marketers, maybe it's better to check the small things before trying to expand to the bigger things, because the small things ultimately might have a bigger impact. The smaller things might have a bigger impact than the bigger things that you're thinking in your head. So that would probably be my best optimization today. I'm not sure, Stephen, if I have time for a second one.
Yeah, sure. I think you do. I don't. Pearl, are we open this up for Q&A?
Yeah, let me look for the questions.
All right. So, Joe, if you want to share that second optimization example while she's taking a peek and see if anyone's putting questions in the chat.
Great, no worries. I kind of already touched upon it. From a retargeting standpoint, it did help facilitate the program from the CIG perspective, but it was very manual to actually get in our app abandonment data. So quite frankly, we had someone manually add in the data from a day ago of app abandonment, saw a 56% conversion on those people we targeted. It was insane. Then timing it to a week later, it was 4%. So
wow.
If you think about it, personalization, everyone uses a buzzword, but personalization in terms of timing is incredibly important, being contextual. You barely remember what you had breakfast 2 days ago. You're not going to remember if you applied for a banking product a week ago. So again, that's why we made the investment, expanding the Braze SDK, getting more segmentation data in real time to our Braze platform and our other endpoints to be able to action when you do make that abandonment step. I would say on the second best optimization.
Do you do personalization based on channel preference as well?
Well, we do. But I don't think we're as developed as we can be. And I think with us having that feedback loop of interaction data and having more channels in-house now, will actually allow our audience team to actually build segmentation and say, hey, these types of clients actually are more likely to open a push notification versus email. So why are we sending them an email? So I'm hoping next year, if I do get invited again, I'll have some more success stories on how that actually ended up working out.
Awesome. Pearl, I'll pause and see if you've got any cute questions that anyone submitted.
No, but I actually dug up a fun quote in Joe's bio, a quote to live by, and I feel like I need to read it because it's so relevant. So it goes, "It is not the critic who counts, but the competitor who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings, but who does actually drives to do the deeds, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least failed while daring greatly." Stephen, do you know who said this?
I don't, and I feel like I should know from my time with Joe.
It's Theodore Roosevelt. It's amazing.
I do appreciate that for sure. Pearl, I do see a question that did come in. If you had to choose one channel to exclusively market to your customers, which would it be and why?
It might sound like a cop-out, but I don't necessarily think there's one channel that you can market towards the client. I think that the client changes over time. So if they're more likely to open push notifications when they're 18 to 25, but 26 to 30, they're opening their Outlook email more frequently. Why would I consistently keep sending them a push notification if they, as a client or as a user, have changed in terms of their behavior? In essence, it should always be the right channel for that client at the right time.
That's probably how I would have chosen to answer. I just thinking of personal experience, like I have my text messages, so they auto remove, every 7 days, auto delete. So I can't search history there. So if you're sending me something transactionally, I need to see that in email, which I can then search. However, for on-demand communications, text certainly works. Push notifications drive me into, a mobile experience, which allows me to, deep link into something that I can take specific action if you're trying to drive an action. So I do appreciate that certain channels work for certain use cases and sometimes not for others. So I tend to align with you on that one. Not surprising though.
So if you become a Simplii client, I gotta make a note and put that on your profile. One person we don't have to guess on here.
Do you have to be in Canada?
Well, we can work something out.
All right, I'll be up in Toronto in a few weeks. We'll maybe we'll open something up while we're up there.
There we go. There's one sale.
I love it. What a great conversation. I love the chemistry between you two. So thank you so much for joining us on our virtual stage, Joe and Stephen. Hope to have you both back again soon, preferably in person.
About time.
What an eager face. I mean, I'll be at F1 Austin in Art Basel, so don't be shy. We're doing 3D events over there. So yeah, let me know.